Alright, I was not planning to get hooked. See, back in February, I bought the Galaxy S25 just to give it a test run, maybe use it for a week and then move on. But it's been 4 months and I'm still using this thing every single day like my life depends on it. And the crazy part is, it's not even the usual stuff like the camera or the screen, it's the little things. The way this phone just clicks with how I live. And to be honest, it's low-key addictive. Now, so far in 2025, I've used a ton of flagships this year, OnePlus, Pixel, and even the iPhone, but there's something about this one that just keeps pulling me back in. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly why I'm addicted to my Galaxy S25. The good, the bad, and a few things that Samsung really doesn't want you to notice. But before I tell you guys why I'm addicted to my Galaxy S25, I do want to point out some things that I truly didn't like. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been loving this phone, but no device is perfect. And after about 4 months of using my Galaxy S25, there are definitely some things that bug me enough that I think they're worth pointing out. First off, the video quality. And no, I'm not talking about the camera hardware, I mean the software tuning. The ISO and lighting adjustments when shooting videos is super inconsistent. It'll suddenly brighten or darken mid-shot, kind of like it's confused about the scene. But on my S25, you can actually see the change in real time and it just ruins the shot. Especially if you're filming something for YouTube, Reels, or just trying to capture a moment, it makes the footage feel unstable. And then there's the price to feature ratio. This phone costs well over 800 bucks, but honestly, it doesn't quite feel like a complete flagship at that price. I mean, think about it. No 1440p display. Even the S24 and S25 Plus has that. And we're also still rocking 1080p here, which is fine for casual use. But if you have used a sharper panel, you'll definitely notice the difference, especially with text and HDR content. And it also maxes out at 25-watt charging, which is pretty ridiculous. Compare that to something like the OnePlus 13 that's at the same price that hits up to 100 watts and you start wondering, where exactly did all of that premium price go? It's kind of like for the past couple of years, the S23, 24, and 25 are exactly the same. So what are the real upgrades? Now here's something else that especially frustrates me, and that's the social media performance. And as much as I prefer the Galaxy S25 for scrolling through my apps, uploading content is a different story. Instagram, TikTok, and even Twitter all look worse compared to my iPhone. The video compression feels harsher, colors shift weirdly, and don't even get me started on emojis. I've literally had friends that message me that my emojis look horrible on my story, and I agree with them. They come through completely washed, and it just feels like these apps treat Samsung phones like an afterthought. No optimization, no priority, and if you're a creator or someone who uploads a lot, that's a real. But look, none of these are total deal breakers, but they do add up, especially when you're paying flagship money, and yeah, there are some workarounds. For video, I've started using third-party apps like Filmic Pro to lock ISO and exposure manually. But for social uploads, I'll sometimes edit on my S25, but then transfer to my iPhone to actually upload, which is annoying, but more reliable if you want your content to look clean. So yeah, the S25 gets a ton of things right, but these are some little annoyances that remind you it's still not a perfect phone. So now that we've got the problems and concerns out of the way when it comes to my S25, let's get into why I say that I'm addicted. Now, when I say that I'm addicted to this phone, I don't mean that I'm just doom scrolling for hours on TikTok. I mean that this phone actually has become a part of my daily rhythm. It's not just about performance, though that's definitely part of it. The Snapdragon 8 Elite chip is crazy fast, and I've never really had to think twice before launching into a heavy app. And it also feels instant, smooth, no stutter, no lag, and no wait for it to catch up type of moments. So when I say I'm addicted, it's not because it has one killer feature, it's because this phone somehow got all of the little things that I really love right. It's the frictionless flow from app to app, task to task, and it's just the way that it blends into my day. And that, more than any spec sheet, is what's keeping me enjoying it. Now, 4 months in, honestly, this thing still flies. I use my phone a lot, not just for calls or messages, but like actual work. I'm switching between Gmail, CapCut, Notion, YouTube Studio, Google Drive, and sometimes I've got Chrome tabs open in the background while my music is playing. And the S25 hasn't once made me stop and wait. App launches are instant, animations are smooth, and it handles multitasking really well, even with apps floating in pop-up view or split screen. And what's really impressed me though is how well it holds up under pressure. I've edited short form videos in CapCut while screen recording and downloading files in the background, and I was able to do it with no stutter and no lag. Now I won't lie, it does get warm, like noticeably warm when I'm doing back-to-back Instagram reel exports or playing Genshin Impact for more than 30 minutes. but the heat management is still surprisingly good. It gets warm, but never I should be worried type of hot, and I haven't noticed any thermal throttling either. So yeah, 4 months later, the S25 still feels pretty much like it did on day one. Now, next up, let's talk battery, because if I'm being honest, this is one of the biggest things that I was curious about going into month 4. Has it held up? Is it reliable? And most importantly, has it started to feel like a compromise? Well, for me, I've been averaging around 6 to 6.5 hours of on-screen time. That's with mixed usage, a couple of hours of YouTube, a lot of social scrolling, camera use, replying to emails, and even editing thumbnails here and there. On lighter days, I can stretch it to almost 7 hours, and on heavier days, especially when I'm on mobile data or filming in 4K, I'll need to top up by evening. Overnight drain has been pretty minimal though. If I go to bed at 100%, I'll wake up around 94 to 95%, which is pretty solid. No weird background apps draining power, and I haven't even turned on battery saver. Now, let's talk about charging. Samsung claims 25 watt fast charging, and while yeah, technically it's quote unquote fast in 2025, it's kinda mid. It takes about 70 minutes to go from 0 to full, which isn't slow, but it's noticeably behind what other phones are doing, like the OnePlus 13 that charges from 0 to 100% in under 40 minutes. And with my OnePlus 13, I could literally forget to charge it, plug it in while I was in the shower, and it's ready to go. But with the S25, I actually had to plan a little bit at times. It also does support wireless charging, and that's been handy for overnight charging or just dropping it on my desk charger. And reverse wireless charging, while I don't use it, it is nice to have for juicing up my earbuds in a pinch. And as far as battery degradation, I haven't noticed anything dramatic. The battery health still feels strong. I'm not getting less screen time than I did in month 1, no sudden drops, and the phone still learns my routine and optimizes charging pretty well, especially overnight. So overall, I'd say battery life is dependable but not stand out. It gets the job done, but don't expect it to blow your mind, and that charging speed, definitely something that I hope Samsung takes more seriously with the S26. But alright, let's get into cameras because this has been a bit of a mixed bag for me. Overall, the S25 takes some incredible shots. Daylight photos are super sharp, vibrant, and detailed. Exactly what you'd expect from Samsung. Their image processing still leans a little saturated, but honestly, it's kind of a signature look now. Portrait mode's been solid too. Edge detection has gotten better, especially when there's good lighting, faces pop, backgrounds blur nicely, and skin tones surprisingly look more natural than I remember from previous Galaxy models. But when it comes to low light, that's where things kind of start to wobble a bit. It's usable, especially with night mode, but I've noticed some shots get overly smooth or lose contrast. It's kind of like the phone is trying too hard to clean things up. Sometimes it works, but other times it makes things look a bit plasticky. I've had shots where the moody street scene turned into a weirdly bright mess, and that's because the AI thought I wanted more light than I actually did. The ultra-wide lens has been reliable, but not mind-blowing. It captures a ton of space, which is great for architecture or landscapes. But detail drops off at the edges, especially in low light. It's quite not on par with the main sensor. Zoom performance though, surprisingly good. That 3x and 5x range has been super useful, honestly way more than I expected. I used it to grab quick shots of signs, pets across the yard, and even candid street stuff. And it's held up well with good stabilization and decent clarity. Now where Samsung flexes a bit is the AI features. The generative edit is pretty wild. You can literally move people around or remove objects from the background. I don't use it daily, but when I do, it works very well. Along with expanding pictures is something that is really helpful. That said, video has been a bit of a letdown. As I mentioned earlier, the lighting and ISO adjustments can be really distracting. I've had shots where it randomly darkens or brightens halfway through filming, which makes it almost unusable for anything professional. The stabilization is great, and 4K at 30 frames per second looks sharp, but the iPhone still crushes it when it comes to consistency and dynamic range. So here's the takeaway. The Galaxy S25 has one of the most fun camera systems that I've ever used. It's versatile, smart, and can absolutely deliver, especially when it comes to photos. But it's not perfect. If you're looking into shooting videos regularly, or you want a super consistent low light performer, you might find yourself missing the iPhone or even the Pixel 9 in certain situations. But alright, if you're into mobile gaming, then this part is for you. I've tested the Galaxy S25 with all of the usual suspects, an Impact, Call of Duty Mobile, and even a little PUBG Mobile. And across the board, performance has been rock solid. Genshin Impact, I'm getting a stable 60 frames per second on high settings, even during combat heavy areas like Sumeru City or boss fights, which is where a lot of phones start to choke. But with the S25, no major stutters, no mid-battle lag, and it just holds up. Call of Duty Mobile runs buttery smooth at 120 frames per second on max settings, and the phone doesn't even flinch. Like, I was jumping between multiplayer matches and battle royale with full graphics and max FPS toggled on, and I had zero dips. PUBG was the same story, ultra HD settings, extreme frame rates, and not a single drop. And now when it comes to thermals, again, it does get warm, but it doesn't really overheat. Samsung's vapor chamber cooling actually does the job. And after 30 to 45 minutes of Genshin Impact, the phone does get noticeably warm around the back, but not uncomfortably so. We're talking low 40s Celsius at most, and no thermal throttling that I could feel, while the performance stays consistent. The haptics are a big win too. They're tight, sharp, and responsive. Not the loose, buzzy vibrations that you get on some Androids. And when you're getting hit in Call of Duty Mobile or switching weapons, the feedback feels premium. And the stereo speakers are loud, clear, and surprisingly immersive, especially when compared to Infinix, OnePlus, or any other phone in its price range. So bottom line, the S25 is absolutely a game-ready phone. It handles demanding titles without breaking a sweat, and thanks to that solid thermal management, it stays cool enough to keep playing without performance drops. So if mobile gaming is a priority for you, this phone easily is one of the top contenders right now. But alright, let's talk software, which honestly has come a long way. Now, one thing that I do give Samsung credit for is customization. You can tweak literally everything from your lock screen widgets and animation speeds to how your app drawer behaves. And if you're into theming, Good Lock is still undefeated. You can make this phone feel entirely your own without needing to root or sideload sketchy launchers. And in terms of updates, this is where Samsung is killing it. The S25 has promised 7 years of updates, which is pretty insane. Security patches have been hitting on, and I've already had some minor updates that quietly improve stability and camera performance since launch. No delays and no missing features. One UI just keeps moving. There's no weird lag when switching between apps, no janky animations, and no sudden slowdowns, which is a pretty big step up from how Samsung used to be a few years ago. If anything, the only real annoyance that I've had is the notification shade. It still feels a bit cluttered compared to the Pixel. There's a lot going on, device toggles, extra sliders, and it can be overwhelming if you're used to something cleaner, but again, it's all stuff that you can tweak or disable. So overall, One UI 7 on the Galaxy S25 is kind of the best that it's ever been. Once you tailor it to your needs, it's powerful, responsive, and genuinely pleasant to see. And knowing it'll stay fresh for the next 7 years, that's the kind of long-term support that makes this phone kind of feel like a smart investment. But alright, let's talk design, because this is one area where the Galaxy S25 feels pretty premium. In my first impressions, it had that nice boxy aesthetic that Samsung has been leaning into lately, and I'm a fan. The edges are flat but not too sharp, and the back has this matte finish that gives it a soft, almost satin-like texture. It doesn't feel slippery, and it doesn't scream for attention. It just feels clean, minimal, and well put together. In the hand, it's solid, not too heavy, not too light. It actually balances well for one-handed use, which I didn't expect given the size, and I've been using it without a case on and off. And even though it's a pretty mid-sized phone, the boxy frame makes it easier to grip without worrying that it'll slip out of your hands. Now, durability. After 4 months of almost everyday use, the matte back doesn't pick up fingerprints, which is a blessing compared to those glossy glass phones that turn into smudge magnets the second you touch them. The metal rails though, they've picked up a couple of tiny scuffs. Nothing major, but you'll notice them if you go looking under direct light. I haven't really had any major scratches on the screen yet, but for a while I did have a tempered glass screen protector on just to play it safe. And if you're the kind of person who tosses your phone in a bag with keys or a spare change, I definitely recommend keeping a case on just for a peace of mind. Buttons and ports still feel tight and responsive, no wiggling, and the power and volume buttons haven't lost their tactile click. The USB-C port is clean and hasn't gotten loose over time, which can be an issue on some phones. So from a build quality and design standpoint, the S25 feels absolutely worthy of the flagship price. It's sleek, solid, and refined, and it doesn't try to be flashy, but it nails the fundamentals of a premium design. And 4 months in, it feels just as satisfying to hold and use as on day one. So after 4 months of daily use, here's my honest take on the Galaxy S25. It nails the essentials. Performance is top tier, the display is smooth, the design feels premium, and it's got one of the most polished software experiences that I've had on a Samsung phone in years. Gaming, flawless, multitasking, effortless, camera, great, with a few quirks. But it's not perfect. The 1080p display, the relatively slow 25-watt charging, and the weird inconsistencies with social media uploads, those are real trade-offs, especially when you're paying over $800. And if video is your priority, you might still prefer the consistency of an iPhone. That said, if you're someone who values overall balance, a phone that can do a little bit of everything without choking is still a rock-solid option. Power users, content creators, and even casual users who just want a smooth, long-lasting experience, you're going to love this. But if you already have the S24 Ultra or a similarly spec'd flagship from last year, you might want to wait and see what Samsung does with the S26 before upgrading. But that's just my experience. What about you guys? Are you using the S25 right now, or are you thinking about picking one up? What's been your favorite part or the thing that made you hesitate? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'm gonna see you guys on the next one. Peace.